Hey YouTube, Otto here from Colorado. Jeep guy, DIYer. Here's the problem. It's starting to get cold here in Colorado and I'm out of heat. I'm going to troubleshoot a little bit and show you through the steps of how to fix that problem. Now, what I've got is a Jeep that blows semi-warm air. Now, if you YouTube that or Google it, you'll see some door actuator, maybe some back coolant on the flushing issues, maybe you've got a bad heater coil. All of those could lead to bad heat problems. Worst case scenario is you have a dial problem as well. We'll touch on that briefly. So let's start troubleshooting. Now I've opened the hood on the TJ, and as you can see, I've just propped it back all of the way. I don't have any aftermarket components on my Jeep that would keep me from doing so. So I just prop it just like that. Allows me easy engine access, allows me to see the whole thing, and maybe a little daylight gets in on these cold days. But today it's starting to warm up pretty fast, so it's not going to be too much of an issue. I'm actually staring at the hoses you want to check out in case you're looking for a heater problem. Now, the radiator's right here. I've been running the engine so I cannot open the cap. But the first thing you would probably want to do is take a look and see if you've got a topped off coolant issue. If you don't see fluid right underneath the cap, then you don't have enough. You can also check the coolant reservoir. Now mine is old, so you can't see through it, but I'm not willing to replace that yet because it's just still doing its job. Now this is a new radiator. I did pop the hood, just to let you know, and I could see fluid right at the neck right there, so I know that I've got plenty of fluid in my radiator. However, you also want to check these hoses coming off your water pump, and look, I've got two of them that lead right back to the end compartment, which is the heater coil location behind the firewall. Now, what you can do if you wanted to back flush this is you could remove these two hoses. You can see they have clamps that just squeeze, pull back, and remove, and you would run water through a hose pipe with a special kit you can buy at your local auto parts store. Remember, low pressure only because you don't want to mess up your heater coil. When you back flush, you'll find a lot of sludge in a model like this 2000 TJ. I did that. So I was still getting warm fluid coming through both hoses even before the flush, and after the flush I could tell that they were more similar after I had been running my engine to warming temperature. They're still the same temperature, which means to me the heater coil is just fine. I also can hear noise from the fan inside the cabin because my heater fan is working just fine as well. So I'm going to go inside and start looking for door actuator and dial issues. Let's go there next. What I need to do is turn the ignition into the accessory mode position. You might have heard the fan right away because I already had the fan on, I had the heat selected, and I had it on the feet. Let's turn that radio down. Got an aftermarket installation with XM radio. So I'm going to turn this down all the way to the low setting and see if I can feel air coming from below, and I can, which means that I don't have an issue with my dials. Now if you only had the high level working, you may have a component issue in one of these dials and have to replace this whole console here, which is not as bad as it sounds. However, I do have that, so next I want to check and see if my selector is working. There's a door actuator, which is right here under the passenger side. This is a door actuator. What I'm looking for is this little plastic doodad here to actually turn back and forth when I adjust this dial. I'm turning the dial to hot. Yes, the door actuator did turn, which means this motor is actually performing. Now, the problem is even after I did that, the warm air doesn't feel to be warm. So, what could be the problem? There's only 3 bolts to take this out, and you can see I've already loosened them. So I'm going to take it out and take a closer look. Now you'll see I've already got myself prepared. I've got lots of options here, but I'm after the 5/16 piece. The 5/16 piece is an extension. It'll allow me to turn it by hand if I can, and if not, I brought my trusty socket with me as well. Another 5/16 piece to loosen up the bolts. It's a little bit of a tight fit, so a regular handle screwdriver won't fit down below. Because when you try to use a regular screwdriver, when you get to the backside bolts, they won't fit. So you'll have to come in with your socket and do the work. After you break it loose, it's very easy just to do it by hand, and they just come free. When you pull this piece loose, this plastic piece should follow, and it pops out just like so. You'll have a little electrical connection on the back that has a clip. You just want to undo that and take a closer look at the device itself. But first, I want to see how it's working with it connected still. Now back to the console. You'll want to turn the accessories back on and be prepared to move this switch back and forth. It's a two-handed job, because what you want to look for is you want to see this little notch right here. It needs to be moving all the way back and forth along this train. You can already tell there's a problem with the motor because look at the notch right there. It hasn't opened all the way, and I had the heat setting on full. So when I turn it back to cold, oh, the notch moved all the way over. And that would have opened the door to allow full cold air all the way in. Now these little gears are what actually open the door motor itself. So let's find out what happens when we turn it back. And let's watch it when we turn it back to the hot setting. You can see that it stopped. Let's go back to the cold. And it goes all the way back over. It should make the full rotation. However, this motor is getting jammed only part way, which is allowing cold air to mix with the warm air, which means this motor is actually not good. Well, now that we know the motor's not opening completely, we can take this little guy right here and see that it's had some issues right there on the edge, because look at the little piece that's been bent. It's been having some trouble, but the gears seem to be intact, so let's see if we can manipulate it manually. So, this is the little hole that it came out of, and all you have to do is fit it back in. You can manually turn it as easily as that. So the door is actually working. You can hear it if you listen closely. That means I am going to get heat. And I can test that theory by just driving down the road, warming the engine up to operating temperatures and making sure I'm getting heat. But this motor needs to be replaced. Let's go find out if we can get one from our local auto parts store. Hey guys, so my local auto parts store, they didn't have the part in stock. They were willing to order it for me, and that would take 2 days. Now, I do a lot of comparison shopping, and some of my local auto parts stores are willing to match prices, and then others are not. So I had to wait for the part to come in. It's 2 days later, but I have it now. Let's get it installed. Okay, so we have the part here. Let's unbox it. Now this piece should come with 2 sections. Oh, there's one of them right there. That's the important part right there, because when you find out that you've got a replacement actuator, you'll notice it's a little different than the one that we're removing. Plastic and metal, and you see this groove? Well, the old piece had a notch that just slips right down in there, showed you where it was. The new piece, it only relies on slipping in really tightly. There we go. To that little guy right there. And you can see now it's seated well, and you'll have an equal height of the little plastic doodad that turns the actual selection door. Let's get it installed. Okay, so before I get it installed, I wanted to quickly review why this one is going bad. You'll see the selector notch here. It's supposed to come all the way over when you turn the dial, and you will see on the back where that happens. Now let's look at the back here. Compare that with the back on the new one. They're very similar. They've got the notches. They tell you how far this thing is turning, and that gives you a better indication of whether or not it's working. So what I'd like to do, put these side by side, kind of like so, and let you see them in action. Okay, first let's take a look at the old one again. You'll see that notch moving. And it seems to get stuck right there. Let's plug the new one in and see what happens to that. Now the new actuator is plugged in, and if this was the culprit, we'll see this notch move all the way over when I change the selector. There it is. It's moving. Oh, it's already past the point of the other one. And there was my problem. Plug in a new actuator, and let's just get it installed. Let's put it back together. 3 screws, 1, 2, and 3, and we'll shoot a little video of that, and we should solve our problem. Now, to make things a little bit easier to install this, what you might want to do is take the old piece, which you've got the old piece because it belonged to your old actuator, slip it in, turn it over to cold, take your dial up top, turn it to cold, and then you'll have
in slot position in the right way. And then this guy, just wiggle it around a little bit and it should pop right into place. And then you're good to go. You put your screws back in. 1, 2, 3. I like to do it by hand at first using my little 5/16 attachment here, and we'll be done. So let's do that real quick. So here's the tricky part for this test. You have to start your engine up, and it really needs to be at an operating temperature that's going to produce heat. And that's the only way to really test your effectiveness there. I'm going to go ahead and turn this on defrost, high, and fill the air now. It's just a little moderate. Let's turn it over to high and find out what happens. Oh, sweet baby. I am going to have some heat for the winter now. That is already warm, and it's not even at 210 yet. Woo! Welcome back, Toasty Jeep TJ. So, that's installing the door actuator. The AC heater flow is now fixed on my Jeep TJ, and I have heat again. If you thought this was useful, please give me a like. Maybe even subscribe. Send some traffic my way. However, I've got a lot more repairs to go, and I hope you'll enjoy the future videos. Hope you enjoyed troubleshooting for no heat in a Jeep TJ, and I found my problem. I hope you find yours too. Thanks for watching.